So I'll just get started and say my name is Elise. I work in admissions at Ross School. And here we're talking about athletics today. So with us we have Howard Brown, David, and Scarlett, two students, David and Scarlett. So first, maybe if Howard, you just want to talk a little bit about your history, how you became athletic director, things like that.
Sure. I was a former high school and college basketball player, and then I went on from there to teaching high school level for about 10 years. And then I was fortunate enough to get a college coaching uh, position doing basketball. I did that for about 15 years. And so I've got 25 to 30 years invested in education and being part of young people's lives. And I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to come to Ross, and I'll be coming up on my 10th year. So I've spent 9 full years here, and I've loved every minute of it as a boarding parent, athletic director, and coach of the middle school boys basketball team. So it's been a terrific experience, and hopefully I can lend some of that experience and pass it along to all my students. So that's where my part comes in.
Mm-hmm. Then David and Scarlett, if you'd like to tell what grade you're in, something you like about Ross, and then the sports you play.
You want to go first?
Sure. I'm Scarlett. I'm in the 9th grade. This is my 4th year at Ross, and I'm a day student. And my favorite thing about Ross is how everything is very different, and you can do what you love. So things with electives and things which you'll learn about later. It's a place where you can really follow what you love to do, and it's not necessarily you do what the school wants you to do. You have to do some of that, but you also get to make your own schedule, decide what you want to do. And I've been playing varsity tennis for 4 years, and I played middle school volleyball for 2 years.
My name is David Massery. I'm from Muncie, New York. I normally play baseball and football, but this year I played soccer, and I was a varsity cheerleader for Ross. My favorite thing about Ross is how diverse our athletes are. I've seen wrestlers, boxers, soccer players, tennis players. I've seen all different sports from all different parts of the world. And it's really interesting how you can see how different parts of the world and what sports they normally play there. So most of Europe are boxers and wrestlers, whereas most of America, you would find them to be football and baseball players. And surprisingly, China has the biggest basketball population is probably from China. Someone else, please.
No, I think that's a good point, because it's our sports here. A lot of it is, you don't have to be a star athlete. It's about just being a part of a community and really just trying something new. We have a lot of different sports even that aren't traditional sports, like surfing and sailing, that we'll get into later. So kind of reiterating what Scarlett was saying, just lots of options here to kind of dive into something new. So I think, Howard, if you'd like to just do your overview of the athletics like you had before, we can start going into questions and moving it along.
Sure. We offer a lot of different options at Ross, despite being a smaller school. If we do have enough participants for a particular sport, we field our own team. If we don't, I have a great relationship with 2 schools very close by to Ross, public schools, East Hampton and Pearson, and they allow our students to join their teams so that they can participate in the sports that maybe we don't have enough students to offer here at Ross. So we can offer just about virtually anything that a student is interested in, and we strive to make it a all-inclusive. We want everybody to give it a try. Yes, we compete, and we compete to win, but our overlying goal is to make sure that everybody has the best experience they possibly can have, and learn and grow from the different things that being on a sports team teaches you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. So speaking of all different sports teams and combining with other schools, what are some of the examples of teams that we do combine with other schools?
For instance, football, obviously with our limited population and a large boarding population that comes from countries that don't offer American football, we don't have enough to, form our own team. So East Hampton has a football team, and we've had a couple of players each year from Ross that have joined either the middle school or the junior varsity or the varsity team at East Hampton and played on their football team. We also have, for instance, lacrosse, and we don't have enough members to form either a girls or a boys team. So our lacrosse players go over and join the East Hampton school and play for them, and they compete against other public schools on Long Island that are in our league.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of goes along the lines of, if we don't offer it and we can't, first we'll try to merge with another team, but also it's a good opportunity for you as students to kind of get people together and form a team, get enough people. For example, golf is a good example. I only say that because when I was looking through applicants, a lot of students seem to like golf. So if you're interested in golf on this meeting, it might be something to think about. So I was mentioning in our last meeting a little bit that we are a very Eastern Western culture here on campus. So something that's different for us is we have something called wellness classes as opposed to gym classes. So wellness classes and playing a sport, sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. So maybe Howard, you could talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. We have a variety of wellness classes, and I am in the wellness department as well as running the athletics. For instance, I teach functional fitness. We have 3 different teachers that teach that class, and we all teach it in a different way. So exposure for the kids is different, and they get to try a lot of different options and routines and workout scenarios. We also offer yoga and Eastern wellness, meditation, world dance, hip hop dance. We have a great dance teacher on campus, and so we try to expose the kids to as many options as possible, and hopefully they can find something that they like and fits into their schedule, and go from there.
David and Scarlett, how have you felt about trying new wellness classes?
Trying new wellness classes is fun, and it's a cool experience because they kind of offer something for everybody. So say you're not like a huge sports person, they have things like walking meditation, or they have yoga, or they have just like regular fitness in the weight room. You can do like a bunch of stuff like that with different athletic trainers. So it's really based off what you like and what you prefer. If you know you're more of like, I don't really want to do sports, I like to work out, get my workout done, and that's that. Or if you're more like, I don't really like to work out, I like to do something like I like to do sports, then you get to explore that. So it really depends on what you like. But Ross offers a lot of different options, so you can really figure out what you like if you're not really sure, and you can kind of like just explore all the options that we offer.
Building off what Scarlett said, it depends on like what kind of person you are as well. So for cheerleading, I tried to join the yoga classes to become more flexible and to like warm up my body before I actually got into the sport. Other instances, if you're training for baseball, you're going to ask your wellness teacher, hey, can you point me towards certain exercises that would help me in certain areas? Like the teachers will really help you and like really like let you build on your own, but with a lot of guidance, which is something that I didn't really get at my other school. And I saw that Ross does more than excel at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really fun to take these new courses and do something different. So like if you never did yoga and now you're like, oh, well, yoga, I always hear about this, so maybe I'll give it a shot. Or I always see myself as an aggressive person. Maybe I just need to take a break during the day. I'll take a meditation course.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you need a nap. That's what meditation's for. Sometimes you just need to relax the body. Occasionally you'll fall asleep, but you just need to relax, Like it's school life can really shape your life in ways that it never did before, and it's great to try something new to help counteract some things.
Yeah, that was great. That's a great response. You were mentioning, little pieces of finding different time to kind of take care of yourselves. And so I think that kind of plays off when is practice, and are there practices on weekends, and when can you do free time, kind of things like that.
You're asking
anyone.
So for practices, you usually have them after school. Depends, your coach pretty much varies. Depends what kind of like resources. If you're using a field, it might be different, or the tennis courts or the basketball court might be different. But practice starts anywhere from between 3 and 3:45, and from that time you usually have 2 hours, hour and a half, depending on what your coach wants. Then if you're a boarding student, you'll probably either go eat dinner, and then you'll get on the bus and go home. And then on weekends, it depends what sport you play, but I think only some coaches have weekend practices. It really depends. But if you do have weekend practices, you're usually at school on the weekend. So you play your sport, you go to practice, and then you're free to continue about your weekend however you would like. And sports it takes up time, but I feel like it's a really good way, especially since like Ross is very like strict academically, so you have a lot of responsibility during the day. It's not like, it can feel a little overwhelming at times. So if you, after that, you have sports and you feel nice and you feel like release. Sports has always been like kind of like a release for me. Like after school, like I'm excited to go to practice because it's a set aside time that doesn't interfere with my schedule. That gives me a break from school. So yeah, that's kind of how sports really fits into your week. And I feel like it's a really important part, even if it's just a 45-minute wellness, or if it's a 2-hour practice, it still helps a lot in like maintaining a balance.
Definitely. Going off that, do you guys think that it's hard to balance being an athlete and getting good grades?
Not necessarily, but it depends really what sport you are playing. And if you're playing a sport or if you're taking a wellness course, also depends on how much schoolwork you have. If you're in any AP or honors courses, we do have a lot of time to do our work. Like when I get home at 6:30. So I have about 3 to 4 hours to do all my schoolwork, which it's more than enough time normally. But the main thing is having a schedule. Like don't put like all of your work onto one night. Like if you have a project, you want to start it right away. You don't want to push it to the last night because you don't know that another teacher won't give you a longer assignment or you'll get multiple teachers giving you bigger assignments. Because then you'll be up all night and then that throws off your schedule and then you're done for.
Yeah, I say also being a student athlete, especially during the seasons, is a lot different than being just a regular student and like not really participating in as many like competitive sports. Because in the beginning I followed like kind of like what a lot of my friends did in terms of schedule wise, and it ended up not really working for me because they didn't have a practice every day, and then they had matches some days, and then they would usually go home at 3:45, do their homework till 6, and then they'll be done. I'm like, well, I'm still at school at 6 o'clock, still at practice. So it's really about building off your own schedule and figuring out what kind of student you are, what kind of time you want to build for yourself. And if you're not a person that likes to work late, maybe get a study hall period during the day. Or if you do like doing all your work at one time and you're really diligent in doing it at one time, then you can do it after school. But it's really about balancing the student athlete life and making sure you're not choosing one over the other and making a schedule that works for you and not necessarily everybody else.
Yeah.
Another thing that I've noticed that a lot of the two coaches I've had this year, if I'm like late on an assignment or if I have a lot of homework due that night, they'll let me take like 45 minutes to go and sit down and do my schoolwork. Like they will work with you, which is amazing.
Yeah, if you ever need to go to extra help, like most of your coaches are actually going to be teachers or people working at the school that do sometimes other jobs besides coach, so they'll really understand like that you have stuff to do. So if you say, oh, can I come to practice like half an hour late, I have to make up a maths test, most of them, depending on the situation, will probably say yes because they understand like what kind of school we are.
And also we always put academics before our athletics.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And just to build off of that, we really view athletics as an extension of the classroom. So number one, academics do come first. Number two, I think we're different than a lot of schools in that when you sign up for a sport, it's considered a class. So you do receive a grade for the sport that you play. It does go on your official transcripts as a graded sport. So that's a nice factor too, and it helps create some motivation. And because most of our coaches are on campus, they're dorm parents, they teach classes, they do understand the rigors of our academic day and are more than willing to work with our athletes so that they stay on top of their classes, don't feel overwhelmed, and yet are prepared to compete when it's time.
Mhm.
And I feel like that builds off a lot of how I said this in like the other meeting, how building a relationship with your coach and whoever else, it's kind of really important to have that relationship with at least one adult on campus that you can really trust and like put your trust into. So like, for example, my tennis coach has been my tennis coach for 4 years, and he's also a house parent, and he's also my cultural history teacher. And like, if I had ever had an issue, I'd be comfortable talking to him. So you just have to be able to communicate with people, because if you ever need help, you need to be able to ask for it yourself, because especially in high school, as you're moving up, like it's less of like, oh, like of course teachers are going to come check on you, that's why you have your advisor and people like that, but you also need to be able to manage yourself, manage your time, be able to know when you need help. So if you know that you have a paper due and you can't do it after practice and your coach is very flexible, ask him to do it. Don't be afraid to step up and ask, because if you're having trouble maintaining that student athlete life, you need to tell somebody, because you're just going to hurt yourself. And I'm sure your coach or whoever would be willing to help you.
Mhm. Mhm. Good point. I really like that. So maybe going on a little bit of a different tangent, though, maybe we can talk about athletic clubs, since they're a little bit different as well.
Sure, absolutely. Not only do we have our traditional sports where we compete on teams that compete against other schools, we also have, for instance, varsity co-ed sailing and varsity co-ed surfing in the fall season. And we count those as athletic teams so that you can get your graduation requirement there. And they will go off campus and spend 1.5 to 2 hours performing their sport. And because they're putting in such a time requirement, we consider that an athletic team. So they not only get a grade for it, they get a grad rec for it, and they get that on their transcript. In spring, we do the same thing with badminton. We have enough people to form a badminton team, but we have not yet decided to do that competitively. So our badminton players spend an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes every day after school, usually 3 to 4:45. And they are learning the skills of badminton. If they already know them, then they perfect them, and we give them a credit for an athletic team as well. So there's a lot of different options for kids who want to compete against other students and other schools, and then those that don't also have options as well.
Mhm.
Just another thing, Coach, that we do have pickup games occasionally, just in between the students. So I know that the soccer team, we like to practice on the weekends, especially when we weren't doing anything, and just because, truth be told, our season wasn't that great. So we would take other students that weren't on the team and make them sort of their own team and play against them just to practice. Like, or you'll just find like a pickup game on the basketball court, or someone will get their hands on a volleyball and just start hitting it around. Like you can play a sport and not necessarily belong to a club. Like if you just have any free time at all, you can just pick up a ball and just start playing.
Yeah, like I tennis and volleyball are in the same season, so I had to pick because those are my two sports, but I chose tennis. But then a lot of the time I did play a lot of volleyball. Between, you had lunch periods and free periods, there's always be volleyballs in the gym, or after school if you wanted to hang out with friends, you could always go downstairs into the court theater, which is another gym, and you could hit a volleyball around there. There's always people around, coaches. There's always sport. If you always walk around, there's always some kind of sport or activity going on in one of the gyms. So you'll always have the opportunity to like hit around. So don't necessarily feel obligated to play a sport just because, oh, I have to play a sport. But there's always different opportunities. So if there's different levels of sports, so if you don't feel comfortable competing yet, there's always another.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of different levels, does anyone want to talk a little bit more about RSTA versus, say, tennis options?
I guess I could.
Sure. Go ahead, Scarlett.
Oh yeah. So RSTA is the tennis academy, and basically their day is a lot different than if you were playing on the team. The tennis team, you get 2 hours practice after school, and you have occasional matches ranging from anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. But Tennis academy, it is when your day is pretty much altered completely and you have all your core classes or main classes in the morning, and then you have your lunch, and then after school, after that you would just usually like 1 o'clock or 12, you would go to the tennis center, which is like where we have our tennis courts, and you would play tennis for the rest of the afternoon, mixed with fitness activities and things like that. It's a much higher level of tennis than if you were to play on a team or something like that, because they also offer tennis training class, which is like a lower level. It's just 45 minutes a day. Then there's the tennis team, like I said, and then there's the RSTA, that's really high intensive level of tennis. So mostly that is kids who really want to look into playing tennis in their future, or they want to play against other kids in the county. So there's usually they have high level tournaments, which is part of the United States Tennis Association. Meanwhile, team is more just playing against kids in the county, and then tennis training class is just playing against your classmates. So there's that's an example of 3 different levels of one single sport that you could always choose and like decide which one's best for you and what time you have or how dedicated you are to it.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good
Great,
point.
Scarlett.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Howard, if you have something.
No, she covered it just fine.
Yeah, she did a good job. But it kind of plays off how RSTA, for example, we have coaches that are coming in from around the world to really help our students. And we try to offer as much support for our students as we can. An example is how we have athletic trainers too, which is kind of unique. Maybe if you want to talk more about that, Howard.
Sure. We have a certified athletic trainer on staff, Eugene Lee, and we're especially lucky to have him. Usually schools our size bring in athletic trainers or maybe paramedics or someone in the medical field to serve as a trainer after school. Eugene is there all day long, every day. He teaches some of the fitness classes. He gets to know the students really well, and he does a really great job of taking care of our athletes, not only diagnosing injuries, but taking care of them and keeping them fit and ready to go for practices and helping them return from injuries. And we also are lucky that he has a good rapport with some of the physical therapists that students who are injured and need physical therapy, he can perform some of that right at school, so the kids don't have to leave school to go get physical therapy. So he covers a wide range of topics and is just super valuable to have on campus.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. I don't know if anyone in this meeting is applying or has applied for middle school, but we've had questions in the past asking differences between options for middle school students and high school students. So maybe if one of you guys want to expand more on that.
I guess Dave was mainly middle school, so I can talk about middle school.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
But middle school athletics, so basically middle school, they have their own teams for basketball and volleyball. And besides that, if you want to join a different team, so say I wanted to play tennis, I was in middle school, but I still played varsity tennis because the coaches are really like understanding that you're a middle school student, but they don't offer the sport because there's not enough middle school students because there's very few of us since it's only 7th and 8th grade. So coaches will be very understanding. You can join another team. You don't have to be great. Trust me, I wasn't great going into mine when I was in middle school, but I developed, and you learn over time and you'll learn to be comfortable. And if you're in middle school, don't feel like you have to, I'm only going to play one, either basketball or volleyball, because those are the 2 middle school teams. Like, it really helps you to build up your skills for high school. I feel like if I didn't play, I would really regret it because I learned a lot. And that athletics for middle school I feel like is really important part of it, because you still are at that point where like you still have a lot of time in your hands and you're less pressured because of the amount of work, how much less work you have. So if I were you, I would probably try to go outside your comfort zone a little bit, try new things, try a new sport, take a new wellness, do something fun like that.
Great, yeah. And that brings up another point on something new, is cheerleading was new this year. So David, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit more about your experience with cheerleading?
Sure. So I'm normally a hands-on kind of guy. Like I play football, I like to box. cheerleading was always something that I always saw some blonde girl doing. Like I was always big on the movie stereotype, you know, like only the popular girls, they're blonde. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, and I was doing it as a joke, but then I kind of fell in love with it. And I really enjoyed it. Um, Being an athlete, it's good to be well rounded. And I noticed that cheerleading was doing more than improve my flexibility and my core. So I just found that it's good to try new things because you can really benefit from them, and it can really change your life and your perspective. It also helps you make a lot of friends.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't know anyone on the cheerleading squad, but after spending a whole term with them every day for about 2 hours, we all got really close. And now whenever I see them on the pathway, it's always a nice smile. Hey, how you doing? Um, or I could just come to them if I needed any help. I never did gymnastics or anything like that, and like they were doing them on horses at one point. Um, and if I needed help, I could go to them. Like they taught me how to do a handstand, a cartwheel, and just a bunch of fun stuff that I never ever saw my body doing.
Yeah. And the cheerleading squad, like, I have to say, because I was here before, because cheerleading was pretty new. It used to be here, but then they brought it back this year. But before, it really brought like a lot of energy to the games, and it made it a
Oh,
lot more fun. Because before, like, sometimes it'd be like a little quiet because like there would be kids doing some things and other things, but the cheerleading squad was always there, and it was always a good time. So
yeah,
it was a really fun, and like it was fun having them there, and I'm sure it was fun for them to perform and do that, and it was a fun time. So if you really like that, I would really suggest you do it. If you're into gymnastics, or not even, you just want to try something new, then try that, because it's really a good time for you and everyone else watching, and it brings a lot of like energy to games and things like that.
yeah. All athletics improve on school spirit. Like there are times that only the cheerleading squad would be making noise, and if they weren't making noise, it was dead silent. There are other times where the crowd would get involved. There was this one girl, Hannah. She knew all of the cheers just as well as we did, and she would get people to stand up and do them with us. So you just see like one girl in the crowd doing all the motions and everything,
Yeah.
and just like, wow, we are inspiring people to do this, and that hopefully next year we'll have a bigger team. And next year we are actually taking it up a level. We are doing stunting, which is like you lift them up, you flip them around, and we're doing that all next year. And we're hoping that we can get people, more people, to join the squad and actually be like perform, you know, like compete. Because one other team had cheerleaders. It was a lot of fun to actually have an opponent team with cheerleaders. It really showed us like what we've done and what we've become. And then at the end of the year, we just looked at ourselves and we're like, wow, we went from not being able to do a split at all to being able to do a split in such a short amount of time, and just how we're completely different people, and how like trying new things can do crazy things.
Yeah, that's a great point. Were you part of the cheer clinical, David, that was working with younger students or younger kids?
Yes. So at one point, there were some parents that wanted to introduce their kids to what cheerleading was, and one Saturday we just performed for the kids. We taught them a few of our cheers. They became cheerleaders for the day. It was a lot of fun, and we actually saw that there were a few kids that were really interested in in cheerleading. It was actually a little bit scary because they were a lot better than me. But
Yeah, but also there's always programs, especially with the lower school being on campus. You'll always see them at your games, or they'll always be cheering for you. Or sometimes on weekends they'll have programs where, like, I remember there was like a volleyball program or basketball programs after school to teach lower school students, and you can get community service hours from that, and it's really fun time. So sports is kind of just a big thing that's revolves around the whole school that makes us like kind of a bigger community.
yeah, and the little kids are the future of Ross, and we want to get them as involved as we can, because Ross didn't have a cheer team at some point. So if we start up the cheer team and we teach the younger kids about it, they'll come to high school and they'll be like, hey, we want a cheer team. Let's put one together.
Yeah, like it's fun when you see them, when you like after we had our big vinyl volleyball game, then afterwards they all stayed after and was trying to play volleyball with the big net, and it was cute and it's fun, and you get to see them that they're looking up to us, and I feel like it's a fun time to have them like have us know, wow, like they actually like really like this and they want to do sports, and it's good to inspire like the younger kids to do that.
Yeah, my favorite moment of all of cheerleading was the end ceremony when they were calling us up. There was this little girl who came up to me and was like, "Are you David?" I was like, "Yes." And the little girl said, "You really inspire me." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know how to respond to that, but that was the cutest thing ever." And like she just looked at me and was like, "You are literally my hero, my guy." I was like, "Me?" And not the rest of the squad who's most likely better than me, but okay.
I think someone asked about dance.
Yeah, if anyone wants to talk a little bit more about dance.
I don't know too much about it, but I know that we have really good dancers. They have put on a good amount of performances. They've really blown us away a lot, actually. Most of the dancers happen to also be cheerleaders, so
Yeah, a
they're
lot of
they're just they're doing dance times three.
Yeah, a lot of my friends are dancers, and for dance, there's usually three options. They usually have like one per trimester. So there's modern dance, then in the fall, then there's creative dance in the winter, and then in the spring they usually have ballet. So there's three different kinds. Yeah, because someone just asked what kinds. So there's three kinds, and you for creative dance you can create whatever kind of dance you want. There'll be dance instructors there to help you. Usually kids will choreograph their own dances or they'll help each other, and then they'll perform it at either the winter. There's a fall, winter, and spring like concert. So after each of those trimesters you can perform your dance, and yeah, there's always dance classes every day, so you'll be able to practice every day, and there's teachers there to help you. So the dance program is pretty proficient, and we have a lot of resources for that.
Yeah, very good. So,
Hello, Natalia. I see you have a question about karate training or other martial arts. Our Dean of Wellness, Kathy Yoon, is a certified boxing instructor. So she does offer that. We don't offer martial arts or karate as a specific class, but we do teach some of the things involved with those. And then what we try to do on Saturdays is, if we have interest, this past year we had Miss Yoon would take several of the boxers and the martial arts students to studios here in town, and they would train for about 2 hours in the martial arts and karate. And to segue off of that, um, this goes along with athletics as well. If we have students that are interested in an athletic team or sport that we don't offer, or perhaps they can't get on a team with one of the local teams, then if we can raise enough support and find a coach, we'll add that to our repertoire of athletics and sports. So it's certainly something that we'd be willing to look into, and if we had the sufficient participants and we could find a coach, then we'll add that to our list of activities that kids can sign up for.
Just to add on to that, there are students. If we don't have a sport, like we don't really have a wrestling team, but there are students that do like to wrestle. So like you can get together with them and just have a fun time and just spar, or if you have some sort of like built up anger and you just need to wrestle with someone, you can call up a friend and be like, "Yo, get down here. I need to wrestle someone or something soon," and they'll come. One of my housemates is he did boxing, he does wrestling. It's really fun to compete with him. Because at the end of the day, it's a good let out, and it's a good way to deal with stress. It's a good way to deal with schoolwork, and it just builds a positive environment with you and that other person. And who doesn't love competition, right?
yeah, I think that's a good point that we can feed off. It's just a very good community here of everyone just all in the similar mindset of wanting to try something new, want to be a part of the community. Because, we have 23 different countries represented on campus, and everyone's kind of in the same boat of wanting to step up and build their foundation before we head off to college. So just being a part of a community, you're around these people all the time. You meet so many different people, like Scarlett was saying, like your coaches might be your teachers, and it's just all inclusive and a really great environment to meet new people, really broaden your horizon. So I think those are really good questions you all are asking, though. So if anyone has any other questions, now's a good time to write it in the little chat box. But it's interesting that a lot of you seem to be interested in dance and martial arts and cheerleading this round. It's kind of fun to talk about those subjects. Do you guys have anything else you want to bring up, just maybe that we haven't brought up yet? Maybe that we talked about last time, we haven't touched about this time?
It's just good to build relationships all over. So like if you want to be friendly, if you want to take a scientific approach to high school and college, then you definitely want to be friendlier or closer to our science teachers and things like that. Or an athlete might want to be closer to a coach, just because it's good to know someone in these kind of fields. So my advisor is Kathy Yoon, the head of wellness, as Coach Brown just said. And I was so lucky to get her because I like to do different kinds of trainings, and she can help me with them. One, for instance, I like to climb ropes because it's really fun it's just fun. Yeah, that's it. She can set up the ropes for me to climb and supervise me because her and I have this kind of relationship where she really wants me to succeed, and she wants me to do better in my sports.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about our coaches, just about every single one of them, in fact, I'm kind of running through them in my mind, and I can't think of anyone that is not, that was not some kind of a college athlete when they coached. Kevin Snyder, our tennis coach, played at Allegheny College. Coach Nigel, our basketball coach, he played at St. John's, and the list goes on. So we have really dedicated, really high quality coaches with a lot of expertise, and they understand our environment, and they understand Ross, and they understand the kids that go here. So I think they really provide an exceptional experience to anyone who wants to try the athletic portion of their schedule.
I think that also brings up a good point. David and Scarlett, how do you think that the Ross environment, the campus, the food really impacts you as an athlete?
Oh, well, the food is just overall great. There's always healthy options. There's always vegan options. There's never just one option. Like you can make a salad, you can have what they're serving. They can really cater to your needs. And also, if you have a certain food that you like, you're allowed to suggest it, and they may make it one week, or they may make it one day. I know that for one of my friends, it was her birthday, so we had requested the chef to make her personal favorite lunch, and then she did. Yeah, so they really help us all over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ross is just really great at helping you do whatever it is you need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like community, the community is like great in terms of like having people that support you and that are there to help you. Like everybody, if you go to any teacher and ask for help during your study hall, they'll all be there to help. If you need like assistance with anything, someone will always be there to help you. If you're interested in a topic, someone will stay after class and have like a hour conversation with you about whatever you need to talk about or need help with. Like teachers, especially with teachers, you can build like a strong relationship with them by just like simply asking for help. Like I still have conversations with my 8th grade history teacher, and I still ask him for help sometimes, and it's a really nice way to build like connections. And even later on, you can have those teachers there to help you write your letters of recommendation for college, or because then you at least have somebody that knows you really well, knows you as a student, as a person, and overall. So I think just having that sense of community, even between your friends and teachers and people you see around campus, is really important.
One last thing to add on to that: when you're a senior, you have to do something called the senior project, and you get to pick an advisor. The person you pick is normally your favorite, I guess, staff member to some degree. So let's just say you want to take an athletic approach, you would probably want to take someone like Kathy Yoon or Coach Brown or someone in that field. And it's just good to build these relationships beforehand so that you're not just, oh, hi, this is like, you want to know these people before you go into certain things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great, you guys. I think that's the right way to sum up everything we've kind of talked about. So I appreciate all of your answers. I think they've been really well developed, and I think we talked a lot about all different subjects. So I hope everyone who's listening was able to get all their questions in, and hopefully we cleared up some things for everyone. But this is a good chance if we want to just tie loose ends, if anything has anything, maybe one last point they want to say or anything, go right ahead before we close things up.
Doing great.
Okay, looks good, you guys. Well, thank you so much, everyone who decided to log in. I think it was a lot of fun to talk about athletics. I hope you guys are happy about what you heard. But if you have any other questions, feel free to email admissions@ross.org. We're kind of the first line of getting you the answers you're kind of looking for. So thank you again. Enjoy this beautiful day, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye, Coach. Bye.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.